I will call the meeting to order at 8:45 a.m. Ellen just texted me. She is stuck on a train outside of South Station, so she will join by phone first. So she should be on in a few minutes. And I will keep an eye on her. The first order of business action approval meeting minutes. We're going to skip this. We're going to punt this till next time that we meet. I was not able to get these put together. Just a lot going on this week. So there are no meeting minutes to approve today. But I will get these out so that we can have it at our next regular meeting in October. First item on the agenda is discussion of the 55 plus housing bylaw. Oh, Ellen, great. Ellen's on as well too. And Ellen can chime in if she's able to as we go through this. But so Ellen and I both went to the planning board on Monday. Her and Marnie have been working on a draft new 55 plus housing bylaw. It was definitely some good, robust discussion. So I do think it seems like the planning board is definitely looking at revamping the existing one. It's not as simple as just lifting the cap of the existing housing bylaw. So a draft was circulated. And so a couple of key parameters was one, obviously discussion about cap, and I think they're leaning towards having no cap itself specifically. It seems like there's still some discussion around allowed density under the bylaw. And it doesn't seem like that's actually been figured out quite yet. There's also some robust discussion about the percentage of affordable. I think we as a committee obviously had talked about at least a minimum of 10% to keep pace with safe harbor and also to provide some affordable housing. There was some additional discussion of ranges of anywhere from 25 to 40%, which at least in my perspective is extremely high. So there was some discussion around that too as well. But I think in the end, I think the planning board, was really looking and felt like they didn't quite have it right yet. It needed more time. And so the focus was to not try to force this on the fall town meeting, but really focus on spring town meeting, but to continue the work on the actual bylaw. So good, robust discussion. Everyone definitely seems to be very much on board with lifting the cap. Definitely talk about, the need for, more, 55 plus type housing in town, particularly given we're at the cap. So that was kind of just a quick general overview, but I might pause. I don't know, Ellen, if you're in a position to, speak yet, but happy to hear if you have any other additional thoughts on the meeting on Monday.
Sure, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yep. Yeah, you're good. Yep.
Great. So I apologize. I'm stuck on the commuter rail, but hopefully getting off that at some point soon. So I think that's a good summary of the conversation on Monday, that, there's some, as we noted, some interesting language in there about the density and how that's calculated and taking into consideration wetlands on a site that I think are all a little more complicated than they need to be. And so when Marnie and I were going through this, I think our first attempt at it was to remove that density restriction and just make it line up with what was in other parts of the bylaw. But like Doug said, the planning board wanted to spend a little bit more time on that. And the affordability piece was definitely a big part of the conversation as well. And just trying to find that right level where, we make sure that this is truly affordable, but also I think some of the percentages that were being talked about, I think are just unfortunately not feasible. So I agree that we need to spend a little bit more time with the planning board working out what that percentage can be to make everyone comfortable with the affordability, but without stopping things from actually getting built.
South Station, final stop, South Station.
Well, it sounds like you're almost there.
That is the goal. I think we're making progress.
So I think just more for the committee. So it won't be on fall town meeting. I think it will definitely be on spring town meeting. the planning board definitely agreed that we should continue at it and keep at it in earnest, right? Because obviously Springtown meeting will be here before we know it. I do think I'll keep this as an agenda item, on uh, our agenda itself, just so we can talk about it. And as we have another draft, we can, dig into it as a committee. I do think this is one of the key things we had for the housing production plan. Um, anyways, but I might pause to see if anyone in the committee has any comments, on this topic or thoughts for today.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So Doug, you mentioned that you thought some of the percentages for affordable were high, like 25 or whatever. So I just want to make sure I understand. So the downside of going high on the percentage is attracting developers who are interested. Is that it?
Yeah, correct. I mean, anyone could come in and do 100% affordable, like a nonprofit could come in and do 100% affordable housing project, right, with subsidies, right? But if you're really trying to, drive market rate development, once you start getting above 10%, right, the ability for it to pencil or, be economically viable, I think drops. So I think it's you know, obviously for this community, I think we want as much affordable as possible per se, right? But also just housing creation in general is really important for affordability. And one of the comments I made, so, Boston is at 20%, Somerville's at 20%, and Cambridge is at 20%. And all of those cities have very little housing production now, because the economics just don't work. But with that said, Chapter 40B requires 25%, right? And we do know that we have seen, a couple Chapter 40B projects as well. So it's not to say that the economics don't necessarily all work, but I would just caution the higher percentage, the lower likelihood that you'll actually get projects. I'm also concerned too that some people, it's obviously it's a great goal, right? But I think other people in town could see it as a way to stop development too, right? Let's require as much affordable as possible. And so it just doesn't pencil. So I'm always concerned about that. So I don't know what the right percentage is per se. I definitely think it shouldn't be less than 10%. We always want to stay pace, right? Type of thing. But I think we have to just be mindful as you go higher, the likelihood of getting any development decreases. That's all. So that's my concern, Paul.
Okay, thank you.
One question I might have, Paul, are you at all concerned about enrollment in the public schools decreasing by increasing 55 plus?
Not something I've thought about, but off the top of my head, I would say no. I mean, these are always tough projections. We get these NASDAQ numbers every year, and sometimes they're more or less right, sometimes not. But it's the latest numbers I've seen show a slight uptick in the coming decade, say, of kids. And if you just think about it, I know in my neighborhood, you see turnover, older folks moving out, families moving in. So I don't think senior housing is going to have much effect on that at all. In fact, if anything, it might, just thinking out loud here, it might create more students, because if seniors have a different place to go in Southborough, they're more willing to sell their house.
That's a good point.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, the fastest growing demographic group in towns is actually the senior population.
Yeah, there's definitely a demand for it. I mean, we're doing in my company some senior housing, and the demographics definitely are going up. I think part of this is just a housing option, right, for us that, start getting into our 60s or 70s and don't want to leave town, but don't necessarily need the big home anymore. But, Paul, to your point, definitely, I think it'll free up larger single family homes, right, which allow families to move in. I mean, I'm seeing it in my neighborhood, but these folks are actually they're not trying to stay in Southborough because they don't have any options, right? 55 plus is full. And so they're moving to Newburyport or other places, right? So as soon as their kids are out of school, they don't need the school system anymore. They're, trading their homes and moving somewhere. So I definitely think it's, again, it's part of, we said in our housing production plan, I think it's definitely part of the solution. And I'm looking forward to working with the planning board on it. I definitely want to be on Springtown meeting. But definitely from my perspective, a good tool in the toolbox for us at least.
Yeah, keeping seniors in town is actually financially highly desirable because, forgive the nomenclature, but people without kids in school are the cash cows the community that is generating more in tax revenues than they consume.
Yes, the other good news too is we're all living longer, right? So that's good news too. We need different housing choices.
Yes.
Okay. Any other comments or topics? Might also pause. We have a few people in the lobby today. I don't know if anyone has any comments on this one, but feel free to raise your hand at any time. I'll just give it a second. All right. If not, I'll go on to the next one. So a discussion of the town-owned water tower site on Atwood Street.
Can I suggest that you promote Marguerite Landry for this one? She's
Yes.
the select board's representative on this matter.
I'm assuming that is Marguerite. Right.
Yes.
Excellent. Morning.
Good morning.
All right, Al, do you want to start the discussion on this one?
Sure. So I've had a couple of go-rounds with town council and probably have 3 or 4 more questions for him. As you'll recall, the trust had offered the town up to $200,000 to help defray the costs of the cleanup of the old water tower site on Atwood in return for transferring that site to the Affordable Housing Trust. And so just so everyone is clear, I'm recusing myself as a member of the select board because it's not appropriate for me and to sit on both sides of the transaction. I am a member of the trust for this transaction, and Marguerite is representing the select board. So I won't be voting for this as a member of the select board. The we had a discussion about that. There was some question about, what the pressure was to actually do something and what the methods are. There is an article that's currently going before the fall town meeting to fund the design and of the cleanup plan. And it is true that cleanup plan is at least in part a function of the intended uses and both the short-term and long-term costs. But if you do what I'm going to describe as a full cleanup, which is to say to remove the materials in question, that would probably be more expensive than in the short run than capping the site. However, capping the site comes with long-term costs in terms of having to monitor that site essentially in perpetuity, not unlike the old dump on near the Neary School. So at this point, the select board, I'll let Marguerite describe, where the select board stands on this, but I think they wanted to hear some more. There is a question as to whether it is appropriate to use CPA funds for remediation versus simply an outright offer of purchase. And so I think we need to maintain some flexibility there. And I think we had a discussion where of the $200,000 could be provided either from trust funds or from any grants which the trust might qualify for as part of the remediation. So in other words, if we apply for remediation funds because we're going to be using the site for housing, those funds would qualify as part of our 200,000. So that's where I think we stand at the moment. It's obviously, there's concern about the speed of this and the newness of this. We have an opportunity in front of us. The trust was formed to be able to move faster than the normal processes of government. particularly in relation to real estate matters.
Al, I have just a quick question, more of about, because I did read the report, and maybe you or Marguerite might have a better sense of this, but I know that the two options were in the report. One was about, full cleanup, right? 1,500 to 1,800 cubic yards, right? Which would remove all the lead impacted soil and was pretty expensive, right? 800,000 to 1.3 range, right? But again, it was
Yep.
just a range. The second option talked a little bit more, I think, about capping maybe or something. But I guess the first question is, because I'm not really sure where the town is in this process, because I've dealt with some environmental remediation other sites. Is the town required to clean it up at this point if it's not doing anything? Or I'm just trying to understand what is the status, right? Because I think some things were above a reportable condition. But I'm trying to understand what is, put aside the potential of something happening on the site, but more just if the town did nothing, right? What is, do they need to do further testing? I know some testing was done on some abutting lots, right? But not all abutting lots. And was just curious, more curious about where is the status of just this with the select board of the town for the environmental side?
Do you,
My understand. Oh, go ahead, Marguerite.
okay, as I understand it, it is now, the site is now on the state's radar, and that we have there is a clock on getting it cleaned up sooner than later.
Okay. And Marguerite, for cleaning it up more, just out of curiosity, is it a complete cleanup, right? Really, the first option, which is no matter what happens, the town's got to spend the 800 to 1.3 million, or is there a lower cost option that just kind of covers it and leaves it for now? Or I'm just curious, what options the town has in front of it, more out of curiosity.
Where we are on the cleanup, understood. One thing is, I don't think CPA funds are permissible to use for that. I was told that they're not permissible to use for cleanup. The other part of it is, I think we need the engineering study to guide us on what our choices are for the cleanup, whether there's ledge under it. The town put a foot of topsoil on it when they took the tower down. So the lead is actually 12 inches and below. So that's another factor. There's sort of a lot of question marks on it. And I think it will need the engineering study to be done before we can make a reasonable decision on what to do. The other thing that I think it needs to get looked at is whether it'll come out of the $85,000 that the select board wants to put toward it, is whether to build a barrier around it. And I think for those reasons, because PAR recommended one, and I think for those reasons, Andrew had suggested to me putting in a town meeting article for 100,000, which would include the cost of a barrier or anything else if that was needed, in addition to the further engineering study. So that's, I think, where we sit right now. We don't know what the best choice forward is until the study gets done.
Great, that's really helpful. Thank you.
Do you mind if I ask a question, Doug?
Yep, please.
So just in terms of just purchasing one of the non-contaminated lot and proceeding with that, is that something that's been considered at all?
Not an open session.
Okay. So is that not appropriate then, Doug, to bring that up at this point?
Yeah, I think because again, that's a real estate this discussion. That's what's been held in executive session, right, Jesse?
Okay.
This being town-owned land, definitely different, but I mean, the
fair.
question about whether we could do something without this, I think that's open game. But yeah, it's
Well, so that's more in the direction, at least I'm heading as a voting member, is, if my concern with going with a larger scale project in this part of town is that this part of town is already, unless I'm mistaken, part of the MBTA community's high density zone. So why would we, where there's very likely going to be projects in the vicinity. I think that for the sake of the residents living in that part of town, going, to the extent that we're talking about seems onerous, in my opinion.
So Paul, Ellen, or give it over to you guys to see if you guys have additional comments, on specifically, again, now the town-owned parcel, the water tower site, but open it to further discussion from other members.
I'm good. I mean, it sounds like to me like all my questions have to be answered by the engineering study, so I'm good right now.
Yeah, and I would say just to Jesse's point that, this a portion of the MBTA zoning, is around the train station, but not, directly in this neighborhood or around this parcel. And so I think, we've been, as looking for a lot of opportunities on in all parts of town for land that would be a good fit for, neighborhood scale development. And this is one of the better opportunities that we've come across. So I think, there's an opportunity here to really work with the neighborhood, work with the community as a whole, to make something that fits and really meets the needs.
Yeah, I would also say too, more just, for background, again, because I think we have a few folks on the line too as well from the neighborhood. Again, Al, you kind of brought this up. I mean, part of this was, I think, one, as Ellen, as you said, the Affordable Housing Trust is looking for potential parcels of land to do some affordable housing at really appropriate density, right? That's a goal of the Affordable Housing Trust, right? And so we're always keeping an eye out for parcels. I think just generally too, just again, as a recap last time, this committee definitely discussed this being more of a 55 plus, community as well. So again, really looking at, elderly housing that was affordable. That was something that was important to us that we talked about quite a bit. And then also the discussion around was, we know that the town has to foot a pretty significant bill, right, for the cleanup, right, of anywhere from 800,000 to 1.3 million. And again, was there a way, if the town had to incur this cost anyways, was there a way for us to, do some type of very low density senior housing development that would allow us to leverage other state funds to help us pay for it, or working with a nonprofit to help us pay for some of those cleanup costs? And so again, I think just important for everyone to know, this is the committee again is still exploring, all of these options. This also has been, you know, accelerated a little bit because there's opportunities that might help, be complementary to this too as well. So that's part of why this discussion has come up. So just more for backgrounds, because I'm not sure people were at our last couple of meetings. So we are as a community trying to be very deliberate and not rushed, on these types of things. But we definitely know that there's an environmental issue that, it's a pretty significant issue that we're going to have to come up with funds that were not anticipated before. So, and so we're just trying to see if there's a synergy there. So that's just more, I think I just wanted to say that from my background. I definitely would like to, again, I would say similar. I think, as Paul said, I feel like I need to know more information about the site itself and the engineering around it, and how it's going to work. And then again, not necessarily the purview of this committee, more, Marguerite, back through you, understanding too from PARE is if more testing is actually needed too as well. But that I think is pretty important. And I definitely, this committee doesn't want to get crossed up on the use of CPA funds for what it cannot be used for, but I think we all are in the same boat trying to find this site definitely needs a solution, right? And, and we are looking for, parcels for low density, very low density, affordable housing, particularly for seniors. So if there's some synergy, great. But anyways, those are just my thoughts specifically on this.
Yeah. So yeah, I've been on the trust in one form or another for 2.5 years, and I've been following this for a while. And, we've tried to buy 3 other parcels which have fallen through for a variety of reasons. And, the town has not made progress in the last 15 years on meeting its affordable housing goal. And so this is quite honestly the best opportunity that we've had, I think, in a number of years. And so, I think we need to press forward. At the end of the day, it will be up to town meeting to decide whether they want to accept our offer or not.
Yep, and just to underscore what Doug said, I think, yeah, as Marguerite pointed out, this is on the state's radar. We know we need to do something about this. We're coming off the experience of Breakneck Hill cleanup, which was, incredibly well managed by the conservation agent and the Conservation Commission, and very expensive. And so, if there is an opportunity to, find some alignment and seek support, from state opportunities and tax credit opportunities and all of those things, that relieves some of the burden on our taxpayers, ourselves. So I think that's really what we're looking at, that we know this is something the town needs to do. So how do we do it in a way that doesn't, create that burden, and also turns the site into something that the community really needs.
I guess I have one other question, which again, I think I already asked this, Marguerite, so maybe we don't know yet, but do we know what the time frame is? I know we're on the radar, right? But, do we have a year before we have to clean it up, or is that hasn't been determined yet in terms of we don't know what the clock is. We know unfortunately now we have their undivided attention.
Yes, we do. And I don't know what that timeline is. I can find out and get back to you.
So maybe I might pause here and just, see if anyone that is in the room want to raise their hand or provide any comments on this. Otherwise, we can continue talking about it as a committee, but want to at least give it an opportunity for people to raise their hands. Okay, great. Carl, I'm going to promote you. All right, Carl, you should be able to unmute yourself and speak.
How you guys doing today?
Good, good.
My question is, can you, Al, or somebody on the committee, be more specific on what this 200,000, how this is all going to work with the $200,000? It's kind of confusing for me. It's not very clear on I think you proposing to do a new article specifically for the $200,000, and if that's the case, what is it gonna say?
That's an excellent question. I've got an email into town council, and I haven't heard back yet, to clarify the question of, can we use the CPA funds for remediation? And if we can't, then there would be an article of some sort that would essentially say, that the town meeting would authorize the select board to negotiate with the Affordable Housing Trust to acquire the parcel for a sum of money, probably the 200,000 or whatever it is that we ultimately agree on. And that upon cleaning it, when the parcel was cleaned, the parcel would be transferred to the trust in return for the sum of money in question. And that sum of money might come in the form of either payments directly from the trust or from grants that the trust was able to acquire by virtue of the fact that we were trying to build affordable housing.
So is it you're asking the town to agree now to transfer the land later if the town chooses later on to do full remediation? Is it, or is it, that's what I'm unclear about. When do you, I'm unclear on how this is all going to work. Are you?
So we have had some discussions about this, but the trust I don't think has any interest in owning a site that is contaminated. So it's the town's responsibility one way or the other to clean up the site. Once the site is cleaned, then it would be transferred to the trust and subject to the agreement that we'd worked out.
So with that said, is the article saying that, look at town, we want you to agree to transfer the property to us? Okay, now agree now before anything is done. Agree now to, if the town in the future votes for full remediation, at that point in time, it doesn't have to be another vote. You just automatically get the property. Is that what you're saying?
That's pretty close, and again, nothing has been put down in paper in any definitive form, but yes, it would have to be cleaned up sufficiently well that you could build housing on it. So
No, my question is it a contingent? So are you asking the town, can you vote now before the engineering done, everything is done, because right now they're gonna come in and they're gonna do some engineering. That's what they're doing now. They're putting the $85,000 and now 100,000 just in case they have to put some barriers there to determine the extent of what needs to be done. So is the article saying that we want the town to agree now before the engineering costs are even done, engineering process is even done, agree to transfer to us later on if the town then votes to do a full remediation, we get the land?
I think that's a reasonably accurate description.
Now, may I clarify too?
Yeah.
I think because when I think, would it be correct that the town meeting is authorizing the select board to potentially do this transaction, right? It's not automatic, right? I mean, or just
Yeah.
asking the question, just for clarity too as well.
Yeah. So if, for example, the remediation was not sufficient to support housing, then the trust would not accept the transfer.
Okay, so you're saying agree to this now before the engineering studies are even done.
Yes, I think yes, that we're trying to put this together as a package now.
Can you just tell me why that makes sense? Why would you agree to something now when you don't know, but if they haven't even done the engineering yet? What's the purpose of that?
I'm trying to choose my words very, very carefully. That will become clearer, hopefully, in about 2 weeks.
So when does this article have to be, I'm kind of new to this a little bit. So when does an article actually have to be approved to be on the warrant? What's the timing of that? So is that enough time? And what's my concerning is we're going forward with all this with you always saying that you'll be more, we can tell you more, we can tell you more, we can tell you more another time. It's a little unsettling to hear that when we have no idea what you're talking about.
If I were in your shoes, I would have exactly the same questions.
Well, I do have the same question, and
yeah.
I'm not going to answer.
Yeah. I believe the deadline for putting an article in the warrant is sometime the first week of October. Does that sound right to you, Marguerite?
I'm calling the townhouse right now to find out the exact date.
Yeah, okay.
So at the point in time when we're all going to know what this other thing is that you're talking about, will that be disclosed in the article as well?
It will certainly be public information. It's
can you tell me if, what the benefit of the town, what the benefit of to the town is to agreeing to a contingent transfer of land before all these factors are known? What's the benefit? Like, what's the benefit of agreeing to this now versus just waiting until the engineering? Because you all talk this whole meeting, everybody's saying, well, we really can't talk about this, or we really don't know. We won't know anything on what has to happen until the engineering process gets done. Everybody in the committee is well, most of you that spoke have said that. So that's what I'm a little unclear of. If everyone's saying that we really can't make a decision until that happens, then I don't see the benefit or the reason for making a town for the town to get kind of like locked in to something when we don't know what your plan is over there. That land.
Doug, I'm going to let you
We don't
handle
know
this
the
one.
scope, we don't know the size,
Yeah.
we don't know the impact on the community. So you're gonna just break out, hey, look if you agree, if you if it's full remediation, it comes to us. So that part of it, there's a missing piece here. It comes to you without knowing the plans of what is going to be there. So that's where I don't see the benefit of. I don't see where you're going with this. Maybe that's the more of my question. I'm
Yeah,
really
Carl,
confused.
so I can jump in just a little bit more just for maybe taking a step back. I think one key concept is the ability to leverage affordable housing trust funds through the transfer of the property, to give those funds from that are already raised, right? So it's not additional cost to the town. They're already sitting in our account, and the town can use those to help defray the cost of the environmental cleanup, right? So that's one benefit, right? Um, and and I know that's not what you're specifically asking about, but that's just to give you a sense of why we're even having this discussion. That's kind of one. The second is Al said, I mean, before this is actually on town meeting floor, we do believe it would be pretty clear as to, what the link is besides just this parcel itself, right? Um, and so we may not have the answers today. We might have them in a couple weeks. I think it might be public before we actually even submit a warrant article. But the concept is the town has this challenge of environmental costs. The Affordable Housing Trust has been looking for some parcels, potentially for affordable housing, particularly senior housing, and is there some synergy? And this is exactly why we're having this meeting, right? To hear your guys' concerns and thoughts. And I think our goal is to try to get some additional answers with better clarity. And just that the other topic is a bit sensitive, and that's why we're talking about an executive session. But it's not meant. We're not asking you guys. The goal here for this committee is not ask you guys to be taking on a vote on without knowing anything whatsoever what the implications may be beyond it, right? So part of this may have to just be some patience over the next few weeks as we go through this, but at least wanted to relay that. At least the high level concept is why we were approaching this because of that, the ability to help leverage funds already existing, so it's less of a burden on taxpayers too.
I totally agree with that, the leveraging the funds, right? But
Yep.
if you're acting in good faith in saying that you're going to offer up to $200,000, right? Why would that be taken away? Why would that be taken away then? So if you're saying I would give the $200,000, and if you're saying in good faith we're going to do this, then the $200,000 should be available once the engineering study is known and what the cost of the property is. So I don't see the benefit of that. You're offering the 200,000. Are you going to take the $200,000 away at another point in time?
Yeah, I don't think that's the intent of the committee. I mean, I think there is some complexity here in that we can use CPA funds to buy land, but as Marguerite said, it's not clear we can use CPA funds because these come through CPA, but it's not clear we can actually use them directly for the cleanup, right? So if we don't actually take title to the land, the funds may not be able to be used for the cleanup. But that's something that Al is trying to find out more about town council, right? And so again, I think, Carl, this is definitely very much exploratory. And we're trying to get all the information as we go through this. At
It's
least that's been
exploratory.
the board's
It's
perspective.
I appreciate that, and it's exploratory, but it also feels like it's just being rushed and rushed until you're getting down to like 2 days before it has to get into on the warrant, and nobody knows anything. So when does it give anybody time really to digest what's going on there and ask their questions? My point is, sorry.
No, go ahead, Carl.
So I just still am grappling with the why it's so you're pushing this now, because I'm thinking, oh, they're going to offer $200,000. That's great, So if the town votes, if you figure out what's happening with the property, and they say, okay, look, it's like $1 million to do full remediation, or we can cap it for X amount of dollars, and then over the next so many years, we'll go in every couple of years to see how the lead's doing, just see what the cost is, get your options, right? So that you're taking that away from the town. You're kind of taking that option away from the town. At the same time, there's no specific talk about, even if that all goes through, what would be on that property. Are you putting another 1.8 acres? I'm not naive. I know exactly the property you're talking about, but just because it's my neighbor and I don't really want to go there with you, I understand what you're trying to do. But I think unless you lived here and you knew it, because I'm here, nobody really knows that. The way this seems now is, it seems as though you're going to say, I'm going to spend $1 million to clean up 1.8 acres of land to put, I don't know how many houses you would put on there. It's just not logical. It doesn't seem like a prudent decision right now.
Let me offer the following suggestion. As I mentioned, this will become clearer in a matter of weeks. And what I would suggest is perhaps we send a letter or some form of an email to the abutters, the 300-foot abutters, and hold a meeting where we can explain everything that has been going on once the need for executive session no longer exists. Does that make sense?
I appreciate that, Al, but it's not just the 3 or 4 butters that are going to be impacted by what you're trying to do. That's
Right.
just, I think the abutter thing is by law. I don't know, maybe you're supposed to notify the abutters of any actions taken there, but by notifying just 3 or 4 people and not the entire community on what's going on there, that to me doesn't sound sufficient. And it doesn't sound like you're going to, Marguerite, did you find out what the date is?
Yes,
That has to
JD had to ask. The select board is signing the warrant on October 7th.
So doesn't it seem like from the community, like from me and the neighborhood and the rest of the community, that this is just kind of being really rushed when right now we don't see the benefit of the rush. And going back to what you all talked about during the meeting, is we really can't make any decisions here until we get the engineering, with engineering to look at that. How bad is it over there? How much more did it spread? Is it 12 inches under the soil? So I keep on going back to that and not getting any, even if, let's just take the next step, okay? Even if you say, now we're going to tell you, within 3 days of having to get this on the warrant, you're going to reveal some other project that you have that involves this. It still doesn't address the options, giving the town the option to of what's really going to happen to that land over there. It seems like, I think it's just it's just not a prudent decision in my mind. It seems like it's being very rushed within days. You're going to do this within days, and your plan is just to talk to the abutters and then say, okay, I'm going to throw this in there and we're going to vote on this within, when is the meeting? The 28th of October? It just seems as though the transparency here is, is just not there. And I understand that the frustration of you've been trying to do this for many years and get some affordable housing in the town. And I appreciate that, but there's a lot of other factors that need to be considered, and the community needs to have time to digest what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
Well, Carl, I definitely very much appreciate your comments. I mean, I will say just the word transparency is a pretty strong word, right? We are obviously holding these public meetings, right?
Yeah.
And actually, we're thrilled that you're able to join us today. And this is definitely something we're going to continue to talk about, but definitely hear your concerns clearly. And I honestly really appreciate your time today to relay them. So I don't know, Carl, if you have anything else for us. If not, we can continue along, but I'll just want to give you another opportunity if there's anything else you want to comment on.
No, I think that's it. Thanks for your time. I appreciate it.
Great. Thank you, Carl. Appreciate it. All right, Carl, I don't know how to make you back to an attendee, but we'll leave you there for now because I don't want to kick you by accident. So I'm going to leave it at that for now. Um, all right, so I guess I'll turn back to the committee. And I don't know if we want to continue discussion on this, or maybe we want to, wait till we have the executive session and talk about this, you know, with the link a little bit more, or I just look to the committee to see any additional thoughts on this topic before we move on.
Now, I mean, Carl brings up an important issue, and I think, we're going to have to, if we're going to move forward with this, we're going to have an aggressive communications plan once the veil is lifted.
Okay. All right, so we'll move on to the next agenda topic, discussion of potential AHT CPA application. I think Al, you asked me to put this on as an item, so I will turn it over to you.
We need the money. Yeah, I think it's appropriate to at least have a placeholder application in. It could look a lot like the last one, and then we can work with the CPA to modify it or withdraw it as appropriate. But the deadline is the 15th. My suggestion was that we essentially do a cut and paste of the last application. There is about $102,000 in the community housing bucket in the CPA. So we could ask for some or all of it. And then, as our plans evolve, we can modify that request. That's my thought.
I think that's a good idea. I mean, it doesn't hurt to have it there, and I mean, we could always, if we want to withdraw it for whatever reason, we can always do that, right? So, yeah, I'm in support of that.
Yeah, I just said I think we want to make sure we frame it well. I think, things have been developing quickly, so we initially had not intended to put in an application this CPA cycle, which is what we'd shared with the CPA, with the CPC. And so, I think including in our application a bit more of an explanation of why that changed without going into more detail than we can, but underscoring the fact that we are making progress and, working to put the monies that we asked for last time to good use. I think, those conversations with the CPC will be valuable. But yeah, I think being really clear about why things changed as quickly as they did in terms of our thinking of putting the application in.
So, just, my thoughts on it. Again, I felt like we went through pretty material discussions, with the CPA last time to get a vast majority of the funds, transferred over. And when I say detailed discussions, Ellen was part of them. It was pretty detailed, right? And I think the CPA, they were not necessarily on board at first, right? And we got them there, which is great. And part of it, Al, was to leave some funds available in case something else comes up. Now, I know we all know the track record of no funds have ever really been used ever, right? For a very long period of time. I am a little nervous going back to the CPA so quickly, right? Or the CPC to ask for the balance of the funds. Again, and I know that we may need the money, but I do have a feeling they're going to be like, well, we haven't really done anything with the money that we have, right, yet. And I know we're working hard on it. But I do think, I'm not sure. I prefer probably not to go back to them so quickly, right? To be honest, is my gut instinct, and to focus on what we have. If we're short, 70 or 80,000, I mean, it sounds like that might be more on the execution side. And if that's the case, I think we'll be able to get the Springtown meeting to ask for the balance of it. But I do feel like spent a lot of time and effort with them, really getting them comfortable with Ellen, right? That, to transfer the funds in the first place. And so I just throw that out there that there could be some resistance. And then also we don't quite have something for them yet, even though we're working on something, but I just put that out there, at least my thoughts.
Well, what's
So my
the
understanding
timing?
go ahead, Paul.
Sorry, but what's the time? I mean, Al, you said the deadline for applying was the 15th of October, right? I mean, September.
September.
But then you wouldn't actually be before the committee for some time after that, right? I mean, like
So
months.
it's then like the process of working with the committee over the next few months for something at Springtown meeting.
Okay.
And so, because like Doug said, there is a lot of back and forth, a lot of conversations to really, vet each project and take that under consideration. And so, yeah, I share a lot of Doug's hesitancies. I don't know how it would be received. And so, yeah, I think we would need to consider it really carefully if this is something we want to do this cycle,
Well, my
or
thinking,
keep working with what we have.
my thinking is a couple months from now, we would have a much more fully baked plan. So, I mean, we could
Yeah.
make a very probably simple case of why we need the money.
Yeah.
And if we don't, I mean, if it all falls through, then we withdraw it. I don't see a downside in applying.
Yeah. So the challenge is that, if we miss the deadline, the next deadline is September of 26, and the funds would be available no sooner than the sort of March, April of 27.
So wait, I might be confused just on timing. Are you talking about, I mean, if you're talking about going to Springtown meeting,
Right.
I don't have an issue with that. I thought you were talking about going to this fall town meeting,
Oh,
like
no,
submitting.
no.
Oh, okay.
No,
Yeah.
So
no,
my apologies. I guess that's what I was asking, right?
the CPA process, they want the applications in by September for a vote in the spring. I have an issue with that, but it's neither here nor there.
Yeah, that's just the timeline that
Oh,
CPC
okay.
has to, work through all of the details of these, get everything before the select board, get everything on the warrant. So it's pretty typical in a lot of communities for this type of timeline.
Okay. All right. So then, well, I will. So first of all, I thought we were rushing for fall town meeting, so I'll rephrase. I definitely don't have an issue of putting in a placeholder application, for Springtown meeting, right? I think we'd want to let them know it's a placeholder at this point, right? Given I do think we have to, Paul, as you mentioned, we have to flush this out, I think better. Because I do think there's still going to be resistance. I think they're going to need to see something pretty concrete from us. But if this is a Springtown meeting, I'm definitely comfortable with that. I didn't realize how long the time frame was. Um,
Can I ask,
Yep, it takes a
Ellen,
while
are you,
to install.
do you have any
Yep.
concerns that a placeholder application that's, reviewed by the committee prior to us having a more solidified detailed plan, is that going to create concern or, ill will between the two committees?
So I would say it needs to be a well-supported placeholder. I think kind of submitting the most, bare bones as something just to get ourselves in the queue would probably not be very well received. But I think, Al and I had the opportunity to talk to Lisa, the CPC chair, earlier in the week. So we've been staying in touch with them about what we're working on and what we're thinking. And so if we provided them with something that talked a little bit about the broad sense of our timeline, and then, as Paul said, as we keep building this out, keep those conversations, it's the reason this process takes so long is that these projects do develop over time, and there's a lot of background and supporting information that applicants need to provide. And so, it's not uncommon for these conversations to develop over the months. And so, yeah, I think if we're really clear and straightforward and have backup for why we're putting in something that's a little less detailed at the moment, um, and a clearer sense of how those details will get filled in, uh, there's an opportunity for it to be well received. But I think, yeah, it could be, there could be some mixed feelings.
Well, and I guess the way I might suggest, Ellen, I mean, it's not like, we want to submit, I think we all agree this committee is not sure what exactly the request is, right? But to be honest, it's their schedule that is for, like Al said, it is pretty crazy to think that if we don't submit at least something by the 15th, right, in 4 days, that we're basically blocked out from asking for anything until, fall town meeting, right? And so, maybe I might suggest, well, suppose I, we also, there will be additional funds deposited into the CPA for the affordable, like, in other words, there will be affordable housing trust funds with them, right? Every year, additional funds get allocated to them, right? So it is increasing, right? So the request to even say that we would like access at least to some of those additional funds, I still think we probably would end up leaving some funds with them unless we had such a compelling thing that we needed all of them. But because I do think more just for the community, it was really important for the CPA or CPC to have some funds remaining in case something else came up that was not related to the affordable housing trust. So just again, stating that for background, that was a key element. Um, I might suggest on this, this might be, well, I would say this. It sounds like the committee's in favor of, obviously looking to seek additional funds, right? I think some of us are nervous about the reaction, but given the time frame, I guess I am in favor of asking for the funds, but I would like to, really work with them to say we really are just trying to put a placeholder in because some things are evolving where we might need more funds, right? And we can make it more specific, but I am in favor of that if that's what we're looking to do as a committee. What are folks' thoughts?
I agree.
So is this something where I think we probably need a motion, right? A motion to submit um, an application to CPC for, drawing some portion of the remaining funds, right? Um, and to, further, I guess, evolve the application. I think, again, I think Ellen's right. It's kind of a simple application, placeholder request, but I think we need a motion, right? I would think on this one so that, and
So,
then,
yeah,
sorry.
before it goes to a vote, I just want to, explain what my vote is going to be against, and it's because of the concerns that I'm in agreement with Ellen, and I'm not saying how Ellen's going to vote. I'm saying
Not
I'm
gonna
in
say.
agreement with Ellen in terms of the CPC's concerns over the respect for their process, which historically has been um, an important thing in Southborough. And I understand other communities, it's more streamlined. It's just, we're not there yet here. And, we need to work with the CPC in good faith and good cooperation. So just explaining, I'm not against any particular project, but
Yep.
just going to be voting against this motion. Thanks.
And actually, quick question just on that, Jesse, because it just, Ellen, maybe you can answer this. More just to understand, so is there really no way? So in other words, if we don't submit something by the 15th, the CPC will simply not even consider any application for Springtown meeting if they don't have a draft application by the 15th, or have they in the past considered something, again, because like as Paul said, we could really know what we really need in 2 months, right? which is probably still more than enough time for discussion. And it's not per their schedule, but just curious, is that hard and fast, or has there been flexibility if someone shows up later with a great idea that didn't submit on the 15th of September?
So I'd say there's flexibility. The real challenge is that these things really do take a lot of time to put together the warrant article, to clarify all of the conditions, all of the structure. So CPC spent a lot of time on the application process the last couple of years and, put these timelines in place with the flexibility that if, a project comes up that was not in a position to apply by the September deadline, that we wouldn't, completely close the door. But it really it puts a whole lot on the committee to kind of be getting things in at the last minute. So I'm honestly really torn on this. I think I don't know that it would be particularly well received to come back so quickly or to, kind of circumvent the process. So maybe it is another conversation with Lisa about her thoughts, on how to proceed, if it makes sense to put in. Again, I'm hesitant to call it a placeholder because I think
Yeah.
then we run the issue of folks submitting half an application and saying, oh, well, I got it in by the deadline. And then the CPC is still under, the pressure of putting all of this together at the last minute. So I think if we have a well-reasoned but broad application that can go in by the 15th and communicate very clearly to CPC how we envision this process working. And this is also, so we don't know yet what other applications might be coming in. And if there are other folks who could be applying for the housing bucket, which again is not how it's happened in the past, but we just don't know that yet. So yeah, I feel a little bit torn between the two at the moment, but I don't know if that's particularly helpful.
Would you say it's fair to say, I mean, say we would have put in an application for, just throwing out a number, 80,000. And then, with some broad stroke indications of what we want to use it for, with the proviso that, we will give you a more fully baked application in as soon as we can, whether it's a month or 2 months, I mean, and then, and like I said before, if it turns out that what we have in mind doesn't happen, we just withdraw it. I mean, it seems like, I would think that would be more well received than waiting, say, 2 months and submitting late.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And there's certainly, within the conversations, after applications go in, that, something changed in the project or the timing isn't right and an application can be withdrawn and, brought back again in the future, without prejudice or anything like that. So I think, I think what you're outlining, Paul, makes sense. And yeah, we just be clear that as this evolves, we stay in really close touch. As the details come together.
So there is another alternative. I mean, because again, I'm definitely on the fence too as well. Because again, I just, it was very direct discussions and negotiations to get to where we are today. But one element we could do is to simply state that we could submit an application just to simply ask for the excess funds above the 100,000 that we left, right? Because there's going to be some additional funds that go in, and so we could just be asking for those over, which would still be kind of the intent of the deal where they still have those funds. But that's probably pretty nominal, right? To be honest, right? So it might be a lot of exercise, but we had talked about at one point, are we just putting in every year a request to transfer excess funds, right? That was some of our discussions earlier on. And then we got to this, at least leave 100 back, right? But I'm not sure if that really changes the ability for us to do much, right? Because it's probably going to be, I mean, I don't remember what, it's not going to be much, might be 10,000. I mean, it's not, I don't think there's huge sums every year that are coming in, but, so, um,
I think it's on the order of $30,000 to $40,000.
yeah. So, yeah, this one, again, I'm not happy with the September 15th date. I'll just say that from a committee perspective, right? Because it kind of puts us in a hard place. But it also, we just went through this process. I still feel we're a new committee in trying to, find our way. So it's just, this is a tough one, just being honest.
I don't know. I mean, in the however many months it's been since we applied the first time and they wanted, to retain the 100,000. In case something else came up, I mean, nothing else has, and I honestly don't know who else would use that money. And to me, this is all an argument for making some sort of an automatic transfer every year.
There are other entities that could potentially use it. The housing authority would be the obvious other candidate.
Okay.
Again, in the over 20 years that the trust is, or rather that the CPA has been in existence, at least in the last 10 years, I don't think they've made a request. I don't know whether they're going to this year or not. But
All right. So I think, well, it seems like it's not clear. There's definitely not consensus, right? I could say at least that's my sense from the committee. But we are in a bit of a quandary, right? We have to submit something if we're going to within the next 4 days, if we want to meet the deadline, right? Obviously, it sounds like we could submit something later per se. Um,
we could ask for an extension of the deadline, saying that the current situation with respect to the projects that the trust is undertaking is in a state of flux, which will be made substantially clearer by the fall town meeting. And we would request, a deadline to say November 1st for an application.
I mean, I definitely, at least Al, I definitely think I would, Ellen, as you suggested, it'd be great maybe to get some additional feedback, from Lisa. Again, the one thing I could get my arms around or my head around is, simply asking for the excess funds above the 100,000 or whatever we left in the account, right? And Paul, to your point, that might just be more of an automatic, right? We definitely know we have a lot of need, right? And we've already are experiencing, this is not, we've chased a few parcels and they're not inexpensive, right? And so, but that also then, I don't want to preclude or, I definitely don't think they're going to give up the 100,000 without something very specific in front of them either, right? To preclude that for other folks. But maybe that's something we talk to Lisa about a little bit more. It's more of it's just going to be an automatic request per year seeking excess funds above the 100,000 that's there, right? And then if we have something more specific, we'll come back for those funds. But I mean, maybe that's the way to approach it, but I think maybe getting more feedback and maybe asking for an extension would be helpful.
The problem is we don't have much time. So, I mean, what if
Yeah.
we took a vote on, we'll ask for an extension. If they say no, we file by the deadline.
You're not going to get an answer on the extension before the deadline.
Yeah.
Because I mean, the committee meets once a month.
So I would support a motion for the extension request.
So would we suggest this, that, put a motion on the floor to request an extension from the CPC from the September 15 deadline to a later deadline? And also ask Ellen to follow up more with Lisa more directly just in terms of, getting some additional thoughts on this. Does that make sense?
Yeah. All right. So I would move that the Affordable Housing Trust request from the CPA an extension of the filing deadline until November 15th of 2026, as the current state of our plans is in a significant flux, which will be resolved hopefully by the fall town meeting.
And 2025, right? Al, you said 26, but I'm assuming November
Excuse me,
15th.
25, yeah.
Yep.
Could we amend that? And I'm a little apprehensive about a 2-month extension, and I'm not sure we need that much. I mean, it'd say, or whatever the CPA is willing to agree to, something like that.
Sure.
Yeah,
I
I think 2 months will be not particularly well received.
Well, the fall town meeting, which is when the world will be resolved, is I think it's the 28th, Marguerite. Or is it the 26th?
27th, actually.
27th, all right. So, we can say November 1st. It's got to be after fall town meeting.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, all we can do is ask, like, so CPC's meeting next week, I can't remember if it's the 16th or the 17th, but so right after the deadline in order to start reviewing applications. So the full committee wouldn't have an opportunity to weigh in. But I'm happy to reach out to Lisa and get a sense of if they, if she, from her perspective, would prefer an extension request or a broadly structured application. But I don't know how that works into what we'd vote on.
Well, we can vote on asking for the request for the extension.
Well, so I think maybe the simple first vote would be is that, a motion for HT to request from CPA an extension of the filing deadline. And maybe we leave it unsaid as to what the filing deadline is and see what they come back with, right? That might be the simplest way to do that. That's kind of clean, and then we can hear back. We could also vote to, authorize Ellen, to discuss with Lisa the alternative of, or, so the problem is this is the 15th, but, a more broadly worded, application as a placeholder, right? And, because I do think we won't have a time to come back and meet again, right? So if Lisa says, I want, I'll do the broadly worded, so at least, we can have more discussion about it, and then authorize Ellen to, to submit that, I guess. But that's complicated too. So I'm trying to think about the best way to do this.
Well, it's 2 separate votes, I guess, right? One
Yep.
is to submit an application. Trying to think if we could word that. Maybe take the first vote, to take the vote on the extension first.
Yep.
Take another vote, like failing the extension, we'll submit an application, although we're not gonna know on the extension. Yeah, that's tough.
Well, why don't we do this? Why don't we do the first one, right? Because I think we're all in agreement on that, right? So do I have a motion to request from the CPA an extension of the filing deadline of beyond September 15th?
So moved.
Do I
Second.
have a second? Okay, great. All in favor? Al,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Jesse,
Aye.
Ellen,
Aye.
and Doug is aye. Okay, great. And then I guess the next motion could be authorizing Ellen to speak with the CPC, right? To see if they'd be willing, in lieu of an extension, to file a, more general request for funds, right? I don't want to say placeholder. I'm not going to use the word placeholder. By September 15th. And if so, authorizing Ellen to submit that as a placeholder.
So moved.
I should have typed that down. We're being recorded. That'll be good. I'll be able to get that from the recording. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. All in favor? Al,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Jesse,
Aye.
Ellen,
Aye.
and Doug. Ellen, you were okay with that. I think you offered that. I hope we just didn't voluntold you into that.
That's fine. I will be reaching out for support.
Okay. Yeah, so Ellen, I'm actually happy to be in that discussion too as well.
Great.
You know, as chair. But you know, so more than happy to be part of that discussion too as well as we try to figure
Great.
this out.
I
Okay.
appreciate it.
All right. Well, we've been going quite a bit, so I might suggest that we skip the next two topics, which are kind of just general placeholders for potential strategies for affordable housing and potential parcels of acquisition. I might just suggest we head to executive session, but before I do that, are there any other topics people want to discuss or bring up? Oh, hold on a second. Carl has his hands up. Carl, go ahead. You can unmute and speak. You're still promoted.
I just have a question on when the select board, what select board meeting will this new article be discussed at? Will it be, because at the last meeting, you talked a little bit about how you talk about it again at the September 16th meeting. I just want to be able to inform the neighborhood and the community on when this would be brought up again at the meeting, at the select board meeting. Will it be that meeting, or are you going to wait until you unveil the new information before it's discussed again at the select board meeting? Just trying to plan ahead with people's calendars.
Correct. So I don't know if I have a good answer, Carl, on that. I don't know, Al or Marguerite, if that is an agenda item or is and Carl, you're speaking specifically about the town-owned parcel, the water tower site, correct?
Yeah, not Article 5, but the
Yep.
potential new article. Yeah.
Yep.
I think it'll be on the agenda for the next meeting, which is next Tuesday.
Yeah, the 16th.
And it will
Will there be a proposed article by then?
unclear. I can't tell you that it will or won't at this point.
Okay, thanks. I'm all set. Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you. All right. So hearing nothing else, I'm going to read the executive session. So the board will be entering into executive
Before you
session.
do that,
Oh, sorry.
I'm going, it's up to the board as to whether you'd like Marguerite as a representative of our appointing authority to join us for this.
I have no objections of Marguerite joining us.
I don't either.
Do we have to vote on that, Al, or is that just
I think
more?
that would be appropriate.
Okay.
So I'll move that we ask Marguerite Landry to join us in executive session for a briefing as a member of our appointing authority.
Second.
Okay, great. All in favor? Al?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Jesse?
Aye.
Ellen?
Aye.
And Doug is aye. All right, great. All right, so the board will be entering to executive session per MGL Chapter 38, Section 21, and not returning to open session to discuss potential property acquisition exemption number 6, as the chair has determined that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the town's position. Do I have a motion to enter into executive session?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor? Al?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Jesse?
Aye.
Ellen?
Aye.
And Doug is aye. All right, great. So Carl, we're going to go into executive session. So if you could drop off, that would be great. Again, thank you for all your comments today. And I'm sure we'll be talking about this more soon.
Okay, thank you. Have a good day. Bye.
Two. All right. Lock the webinar. Stop.